It's the end of an era, and I feel like I failed again. It was difficult to make this video because this was not supposed to happen. I was supposed to grow and scale and flourish. This was supposed to be the perfect dream. I'm LeeAnn, an illustrator and printmaker, and I have committed to documenting this next phase of my artistic journey on YouTube and my other social media platforms. Today we're talking about me having to give up my studio space because my small business was failing. I feel like this whole thing was my fault. So let's talk a little bit more about what that means. Let's start with what I wanted for the space, right? What was the dream? I initially wanted the studio and got the studio because I just knew that my stationery business was going to be a success. At the time, I had my press in my garage at home. That wasn't working. I had enough space, but frankly I was scared to print most of the time because I live in an HOA community, and having a press, having a 2,000 pound press in my garage was definitely against the rules. If you know, you know. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it was what it was at the time, and like I said, now I'm convinced the stationery business is going to catapult. So it made perfect sense to me to look for a studio space. The other part of the dream was I wanted to start a full-on print shop. A shop where I could focus on creating luxury packaging for smaller business owners to level up. Whether it be their whole product line, a special launch, whatever they were thinking, I wanted to be the one to help them and support them in achieving that packaging goal. Last, for the dream, this certainly was one of the more important pieces of it, is I wanted to also have a space where folks that connected with me creatively, my creative friends, a place that they could come and do their work, we could do some socializing, that kind of thing. This is what I had envisioned, so why not get myself a studio space? Ultimately, I was trying to build a business or a place where I could employ a few folks. Folks would feel comfortable and even I would venture to say, even happy coming to work. Folks would feel like their individual needs were being met. A place where folks could learn and grow and move on to their own thing or to bigger and better. For me, these things weren't unrealistic. I think when we use the word dream, sometimes for some folks it implies that it might be something unattainable, but I knew it was attainable. Unfortunately, I just didn't actually attain it. Don't get me wrong, I know those things are still able to be achieved. I know all about course correcting and pivoting. It's just that in the aftermath of the failure, I've realized I no longer want to achieve those things. Let's start with the backstory. Okay, if we start from the beginning of the getting the studio phase, I live in South Florida, so from day one, I was looking for a space that had AC. It is too hot, especially in the summertime, for me to be doing all this physical activity and not have AC in the space. The space also had to be able to accommodate industrial presses, so it had to have the garage gate or big enough doors. I wanted something close to home because I didn't want a long commute. Long story short, I found a place that was 5 to 7 minutes door to door from my house. It had AC and it wasn't a too large warehouse space, because this is just the beginning. I'm just starting. Yes, I needed space, but I didn't need 1,000 square feet. The place seemed meant to be, so I eagerly signed the lease and I was ready to start achieving all of my goals. I said to myself, I had the money for a year's worth of rent, so I was going to give it a year, and if things didn't work out, I would just walk away. That's easy enough, right? Things went well for a long time. I slowly got the place set up. I bought a second press. I was able to work more efficiently because everything was in the same space. I had some work-home separation. At that point, things couldn't be any better. I won't get into the details of the day-to-day because it really was better for me to be in this studio space and I was getting a lot done. I'm going to get straight into some of the things that in hindsight led to me having to leave. First thing, I was trying to do too many things at once. My priority at the time was my greeting card business, and I should have been consistent and laser focused on pitching for wholesale, building efficiencies into my process, designing new products, all that. Instead, now that I had the space, I was trying to fast track all my ideas, but I didn't gain much traction on any of them. Even within each business, I wasn't sticking to one lane. Initially, I wanted to build my wholesale vertical first, then move on to retail. But what ended up happening was I was just going where the wind was blowing me. And here we are. Let me just make something clear. This specific video is about the failure, right? So I'm focusing on that. But it wasn't all bad. I had a lot of success in that time. The stationery business did grow and the brand was in stores. I exhibited at a trade show. I won an industry award. The brand was featured in magazines. I was named a maker to watch in 2024. Things happened. Good things happened. The thing is, I could have generated far more revenue if I had stayed consistent with activities that I knew would build the revenue and drive traffic. The pitching, the email marketing, the SEO, all that stuff. I'm not saying that it isn't possible to do multiple things successfully. I think it is very possible. For me, I know one of those things always has to be prioritized. And when I have it running efficiently with systems, then I can pick up the thing that was next on the list. There are lots of reasons that I didn't stay on task. A little ADHD, a little complacency. Life was really lifing, and I wasn't creating or maintaining good boundaries. Lots of reasons. Basically, I never made the adjustments that I knew were necessary for this to work, though I was well aware of what they were. The second reason this didn't work, my marketing was terrible. I'm saying that again. It was terrible. I mean, I would even venture to say it was non-existent. I did the whole establishing a brand identity and created personas, but I never really targeted those ideal customers. Not enough folks knew my products existed. I definitely wasn't pushing my marketing hard enough. Did I have social media? Sure. But I wasn't being consistent. Did I create all the marketing plans? Yes. But did I consistently follow through? Absolutely not. Was I networking? Well, that one I definitely wasn't doing. Did I buy the Facebook ad courses? Yes. Did I use them? Absolutely not. I could list all the things that I wasn't doing. The bottom line is sales is a numbers game, and I wasn't starting with enough numbers to begin with to be able to convert, to be able to generate the revenue that I needed. Now, the third thing, the last but certainly not the least, and I think, in fact, the thing that I regret the most, because I had complete control over this part, I didn't stick to my plan of walking away after a year. The business never got the number I had designated as the number that would make it okay to sustain the expense of the space. The rent going in was ridiculous and the business wasn't making enough to cover it, but I had the money for at least a year, so I decided that I would walk away from the space after a year if I wasn't able to comfortably cover the expenses of the space. Rent, utilities, supplies, all that. The year mark is approaching and I need to either vacate or re-sign my lease. And unfortunately at that time I was dealing with some of the worst personal issues I've had. And I didn't even think about it. I just re-signed the lease because it was one less thing that I had to think about while I was going through this really difficult time. So what actually made me decide to leave? I literally could not afford it anymore. My management company allowed me to get out of the lease without penalty a few months early. And frankly, I should have explored that option right after I signed the new lease. But I didn't. And at that point, I just wanted to leave. The place had me so buried that getting out made me rejoice and not grieve. Now, this happened a couple months ago, and since then I've processed and reconfigured and reframed. I've also gotten quite used to my new normal. I'll do some additional videos on what embracing the new workspaces looks like. I get really emotional when I talk about this whole thing, I think, but I'm not beating myself up. I had lots of success and I'm proud of the things that I achieved. I haven't given up. I'm still pursuing my creative business. I'm just making lots of shifts that feel good to me, shifts that actually are taking me back to what I originally intended for the business. So this ended up being exactly what I needed, and I figured out a way to work on multiple things in tandem, a way that feels good, comfortable, and manageable. And I'm going to be sharing a lot of that primarily here and on TikTok. The one thing that I will say in all of this is, please do not let this story stop you. I would do most of this again. And I learned a lot from just the doing. I made big mistakes that had big consequences. But I also waited too long to get myself out of most of it. Don't let this deter you. Whatever idea you have, start it. You'll get clarity from the execution, and don't get yourself caught up in the planning, the never-ending planning, to the point that you don't start. Create a plan and start going. Make sure that you're checking in with yourself, you're checking in with your plan, and you're checking in with your reality. Do this regularly and make the appropriate adjustments at that time. Watch your spending and do it lean until you can afford to get help. I appreciate you for sticking around with me for this long, and let me know in the comments if you have any specific questions. I tried to keep this as high level as possible. It was something that was, of course, very specific to me, but if you have any questions about specific things, feel free to drop them in the comments and I'll respond. And or if we get enough interest, I might make a video on that topic. And if you are interested in following me on this new journey, be sure to like this video and subscribe for lots more to come.